The day is finally here. We're going to braid some of the soft neck garlic that I grew. I've never grown soft neck garlic before. This is the first time. We're gonna try to braid it. We need to record it as a reel too, so hopefully it all works out. But before we do that, I was thinking, I had this kind of weird idea, but I was looking around the garden and there's like a lot of these orange peppers and like orangey yellow flowers and stuff. And I thought it could be kind of fun to do like a color themed harvest. So I'm gonna do like all orange and red and yellow stuff today. And actually most of what we can harvest that follows this rule is in the greenhouse. So we're gonna head over there. We need a basket. I think this one will work. Just a small one today. One of the downsides of doing any filming in the greenhouse in the summer is that it's hot. And when I have to film in here, I have to shut off the fans because they're really loud and they block me talking, so it doesn't really work, and I have to kind of work quickly in here so that I don't overheat. Okay, we have a bunch of these snacking peppers. Oh, oops. I let these shishitos go red. I honestly don't know if that was a bad idea. This is the first bell pepper I've had. All these Aurora peppers already. Oops. Look how little this one is. There's another Aurora plant back here. Okay, I think that's everything in the greenhouse. We can turn the fans back on. We'll grab some marigolds for the theme, of course. And then outside we have more of these Aurora peppers. You can see how much happier they are growing outside, honestly. As much as I want to pick these purple ones, I can't. Only red today. Maybe a few orange. There is just something so satisfying about this. I think we can get away with picking one of these cayennes. This is everything that we got. I think there's just something extra satisfying about harvesting things like this when they're fully ripe, because it's harder in the Northeast to get to this orange, yellow, red stage. So we're just appreciating the fact that it's even possible. But let me know what you'd make with these. Okay, I'm gonna grab the garlic in a minute so we can figure out this braiding thing. However, there's something totally random that I feel like I have to share with you because I just discovered it, and maybe everybody else already knows this, but if you don't, I feel like I owe it to the dress wearing population to let you know, because if you're wearing dresses and it's windy, I'm sure you've had the experience where your dress starts flying up and you have to change because of the weather, and we're not about that. I Googled and I figured out you can solve this for literally $1.25. All that I did was I took quarters and used fashion tape to adhere them to the inside of the hem of my dress. So I have 2 quarters in the front and 3 quarters in the back. It took all of 10 seconds. It doesn't damage your clothes. You can take it off when you're done, and I can continue to wear dresses even when it's super breezy outside. I mean, do I feel a little bit weird walking around with a bunch of coins in my hems? Maybe, but it's fine. Nobody knows except all of you. I tried to braid the soft neck. It did not work. I think I left it in the ground too long and the stems were already kind of disintegrating. So every time I tried to crisscross the braid, they would just snap. So maybe I should have tried doing it when they were fresh, or maybe had just wilted for a few days. But regardless, I am still not going to get to braid garlic this year. And this seems to be just a curse on me. I don't know, but we did get all of the hard neck processed. So we got a good amount here. I will say it's a little bit smaller than normal. This is music garlic, and I would expect most of it to be this size or bigger, and instead a lot of it ends up being half that size. And I think that's just because we still have that Asian jumping worm problem in that bed, which I didn't discover until I was planting this crop of garlic last October, and I really have nowhere else that I can put garlic unless I really have to. So I'm going to be planting garlic in that bed again And I guess I just kind of have to accept that I need to use a lot of fertilizer in that bed, and I need to be continuing to plant a large variety like music so that it at least comes out normal size, not large size, which kind of stinks. But at least we have our garlic. This will last a good long time. I do use probably twice as much garlic in every recipe as what is called for because I just love the flavor so much, but this will definitely get used up. Any garlic that starts to sprout, which usually happens at like the 8 to 9 month mark with music, I will just end up taking the cloves out, taking all the paper off and throwing them in a freezer bag in the freezer. And I can still use them from that point on. Like I just need to take them out like 5 minutes before I actually need them, and they'll still go through the garlic press just fine. They thaw really fast. It doesn't really change them at all. You can pre-mince it and put it into your freezer that way as well. I'm kind of glad to have this done because this has been haunting me. Mid-August is like a second spring for me in that I have a lot of things that I need to start starting from seed for fall and for winter. I probably have a list of about 20 things that needed to start about a week ago or in the next week. And so I'm breaking that up into smaller clumps to manage my energy levels because it can be pretty exhausting to be schlepping all this soil around, packing the trays, getting the seeds started. So I'm only doing 3 varieties today, but I'll tell you why I chose them. So I'm doing a couple new types of kale because I've been having some issues with kale with germination and also with the pressure from cabbage white butterflies. So I'm trying a lot of curly varieties this year. And one of those varieties is red boar, which is a type of winter boar kale that's very, very curly and maroon colored. So we're adding some more winter interest, some color to the garden for fall and winter with this maroon colored leafy green. It's on the more small compact side for kale too, which will be great for the containers in the greenhouse. And kale, being in the brassica family, pretty much every brassica is planted the same way, whether it's cabbages or mustard or kale, it doesn't matter. These are pretty small seeds. They all pretty much look the same, and they should be planted about 1/4 of an inch deep. However, I will say I have surface sown or chaos sown kale in the garden for like microgreens, and it's done fine. So I don't think it super matters all that much how deep it goes as long as it's not too deep. Next on my list today, we're finally back to succession sowing lettuce. I like to sow lettuce about every 2 weeks so that I have a good variety going at all times. And today I decided to do 1 tray of mixed mesclun lettuce greens because I like that variety. You kind of never know what you're gonna get, and it lets you try a lot of new things. And I'm also doing one of my favorites and 1 other tray of butter crunch lettuce. So usually if I find a favorite in the mix, I'll then buy that one separately to have as much of it available as I want. And lettuce is also a really tiny seed. A lot of times I have the best luck with surface sowing lettuce. If you want, you can put a tiny little bit of dirt over the top of it or vermiculite to keep it damp so that it germinates better. Otherwise, just stick a humidity dome on it until it does sprout. Our last one is kind of an experiment because I've never tried growing this and then transplanting it. Typically with our snap peas, they have really delicate roots. They're kind of divas. They don't love to be transplanted, but I wanted to get a head start on these. So we are trying to grow them in seed starting trays. However, I think I've given them a bit of an edge because these trays have really great air pruning slots, and they also have a hole in the base. So when you're ready to transplant, you can easily push them out without disturbing the roots. I'll link those for you guys down below because they're really great in general, not just for plants that have tender root systems, because air pruning is an excellent way to ensure you've got super strong, healthy starts. Well, I was going to weed the artichokes because they got really overgrown with grass and they're dead. So pretty bummed about that. I don't know what happened. They've been thriving. They've been doing totally fine, and now they're just brown and dead. I don't know if somehow it's just grass in there. I don't know how that could have choked it out so badly, but they do not look good. Between that and the soft neck drama, I'm just kind of done today. So I think I'll come back tomorrow and finish up our chores. Good morning. I'm thinking that we need to do a easy task today, something that we can't mess up, that will just be very satisfying to complete. So I think I'm gonna pick some hydrangeas. This is the time of year where they're getting kind of brown and crispy, and they get these beautiful colors like dark purples and stuff. So they're really good for drying at this stage. And I think they'll be really nice to have when we're decorating the greenhouse for fall. So as weird as it is, I know I pretty much just said we're not talking about fall yet, but there's certain things that we have to prepare for so that we're ready when it's time to decorate. My mom has a ton of hydrangea bushes, and every year we pick them. These are actually from last year. and they still hold up really well. Like, these are a year old, but they just get really dusty. So I'm gonna pick some new ones. I don't think they're gonna be as big as those ones this year, because for some reason, and let me know if this has been true for you, but everywhere that I've seen in New England, the hydrangeas have all been super prolific. Like, there's tons of blooms, but they're all really tiny. And I don't know what it was about the weather that made this happen, but I don't think we're gonna see anything like this one that's like the size of my head. Did rain last night, so I probably shouldn't be doing this because everything's very dewy still, but I'm gonna let them dry for a while in the greenhouse as it warms up today, and I think it will be okay. Yeah, they're really tiny this year, but they have some really cool variation in the coloring that I think will dry nicely. I'm gonna try to get nice long stems and just cut off the leaves as I go. There's a few nice big ones. I think this will be enough for now. I feel like I could just keep picking and picking though, and I'd never be satisfied. But I did want to show you a couple interesting things, because it can be kind of hard to predict when you cut hydrangeas for this to dry them. It can be a little bit hard to predict what they're going to do. Sometimes they just wilt, so you do want to wait till they're really firm and dry. You don't want your blooms to be floppy like this or have a lot of pieces that have just turned completely brown, because this is just going to probably wilt. It has a lot of still very soft, juicy kind of leaves with a lot of moisture in them still as well, and I just know that one's going to wilt. But with these, the stem is pretty woody actually. It doesn't wobble a whole lot. I am going to remove all the leaves because we don't need those for these purposes. And they are still pretty wet, so I'm going to leave them in the sun for a few minutes to hopefully help them dry out a little bit. And I know some people will hang these upside down. To be perfectly honest, I've had the best luck just shoving them in a vase with no water and letting them dry out upright like this. So I think this is pretty much what I'm going to do. Most of this year, and this changes totally depending on the acidity of your soil and what's going on in your climate, but most of these are very green or very purple, which is interesting. This one is especially purple, and I really like it, but I'm concerned because it's still pretty floppy on top. You can just kind of tell, like when you feel it, it feels wet in a way. So I picked it because it does have some beautiful full saturation on that purple there, and I just, if there's a chance it could work out, I definitely want to keep it, but I'm not holding out hope because it very well could just wilt. And you always want to pick more than you think you need for that reason as well. Usually there's some earwigs hiding out in these, and you know how much I hate those. So I will go through, take off any of those last leaves and kind of whack them. And that can just kind of shake off any ants, any earwigs that might still be present. But yeah, hopefully these will dry nicely and we can use them in the greenhouse. I did have two kind of housekeeping updates for you. Number one, the Garden Girls podcast is live. I will link to our YouTube channel for those episodes up above, so you can check that out and subscribe. As of right now, we've got 3 episodes live for you. Really, really happy with the feedback we've been getting, that it's just a super authentic behind the scenes. Feels like we're pulling back the curtain on our group chat, talking about plants, keeping things real, making confessions. So I'm really happy with it. It was a labor of love, and I really hope you enjoy it too. The second thing, which may change depending on when you're watching this, is down below you're going to see a shop tab. So we do have some digital guides going live up there. I think there's 3 right now, but we're trying to add to those pretty frequently, especially over the next few months. I can't decide if this dwarf teddy is ready to be picked. Like for seeds, there's definitely seeds in there, but they don't feel, they're kind of squishy. I don't feel like they're fully developed. So now I don't know if I should cut this to allow it to put more energy into these little baby branching blooms, or wait until it fully goes to seed at this point. I can't decide What should I do? There's so many that are just about hitting that stage. I love these dwarf teddies. They're covered in pollinators most of the time. I also have the most ridiculously tiny butternuts here. Like this one, I think honestly needs to be harvested. Like the vine is completely dead, but it's like, is it decorative at this point? Because I just don't see I don't see how this is a useful size to eat. I'm also trying to decide if I should just cut these Cinderella pumpkins. Well, they're technically Casparita Cinderella pumpkins, so they're supposed to be small like this. I think this is full size. And there's only one more over here, but the plant itself is looking really stressed, and I'm worried that they're not gonna make it, and I'm worried that something's gonna try to eat them, because I was originally gonna grow this up the trellis. So I don't know what to do. I feel like I should just pick them, but then I also feel like I should wait for this vine to die off more, but then it kind of has died off. This full-size butternut is pretty happy. There's 2 so far on it. And then this, I'm kind of not letting it go back on this side of the trellis. I'm trying to get it to get long enough so that I can actually reach and cross over to this front trellis that I had to rip those lemon cucumbers off, because I don't know what's going on. I've planted 2 successions now of cucumbers in that spot, and they're not germinating. And I had no problem with the germination from these seed packets before, so I really don't know what to do. I'm kind of tempted at this point to just put more pumpkins on them and do another round of the Casparita pumpkins. This is the first time I've ever had to have a vlog run into 3 days because of technical issues. You know when you have those days when like everything you touch just goes wrong somehow? It just kept happening. Like multiple days in a row. Like we were having the audio problems, I don't know. So I decided to take it as a sign from the universe or the garden, I don't know, that I needed to take a day off, so I did. But we're back in the garden. We're gonna finish up what we started 4 days ago now. I was actually trying to go in the greenhouse and finish setting up some curtains because I'm trying to get everything organized and reset for fall in there. And part of that was I wanted to add some curtains to the tables. So I'll show you what I did. So I got everything reset up here. I moved some of the existing pepper plants outside to make room for new pots where I've got fall stuff growing, and added more trays over here. We're gonna talk about these next month. I'm actually testing them right now. But I was working on these curtains, and as you can see, I just used an old vintage sheet that I had, and I just Velcroed it to the underside of the table. We also have tape on the legs here because there's a bunch of holes that wasps were trying to like move into. So we just taped all the holes, but I've got this Velcro. It's sticky, but apparently not sticky enough to keep all this fabric on, even though part of it is very stuck. So I don't know if I just need to repress it on and give it time where it's not hanging for it to actually stick, because this one just completely fell off. Whenever I do get it finished, it's gonna look really nice. It's just taking me a lot longer to get there than I wanted it to. So the other thing that I need to work on in the greenhouse that I'd like to get your opinion on, because we're preparing for fall, when it gets really cold in here and we don't have any heat, I need to be using Elliot Coleman's double layering method that we actually used in my hoop house video, which I'll link up above if you haven't seen that already. But basically the outer shell of the greenhouse functions as one layer of insulation, and then we add a secondary layer over the plants themselves, and this acts as a second layer of insulation so that the soil itself does not freeze. But I need a way to suspend this row cover blanket over the plants. So all I've got right now, and I can't think of any reason why it wouldn't work, but if you have a better idea or you can think of why this wouldn't work, please let me know. Because basically all I think I'm gonna do is just take a tiny piece of scrap wood basically and nail it or screw it into the side of these mulling things and have it come out like a long arm. And I'll just do that over and over again down the length of it so that the row cover, which is a really, really lightweight fabric, can just kind of drape over it and then hang down. I did get the greenhouse fairly cleaned up. Like I'm pretty happy with where it's at right now, except for my little pile of dirt right there. I've got my new tray set up. I've got some empty pots over here that I think I'm gonna do like tatsoi in, stuff that can get really, really cold and be okay. I raised the swing up a little bit, and I also hung some peppers right here so these can dry, but I think I kind of want to move them so that they're not like touching the wall of the cabinet. This has become like a deep, dark secret, but I cannot keep houseplants alive, like especially during the summer. I forget about them. They're super, super neglected. So I don't even remember the last time that I watered this pothos. I just stuck it in water last night, overnight, because you should have seen it. Like it was completely drooped. They are surprisingly resilient though, and that is one of the reasons why I do keep them as houseplants, because they can tolerate my neglect to a certain degree. I had it in this really big pot, which was really just wishful thinking, because it needs something a lot smaller for now. So I think I'm actually just gonna stick it in this one, because this one is more appropriately sized for the existing root structure that we have left. The soil got really hydrophobic, and this I feel like is a big problem with my houseplants that I just have not figured out. Like, if a plant isn't supposed to get watered until the soil is dry, a lot of the times that means the soil is already hydrophobic. So I don't really know like how houseplant people eliminate this problem, other than like maybe they keep their house more humid. Outside, I just use mulch for that, but I also don't have tropical plants outside where the soil needs to completely dry out before I water them. So I don't know. It's kind of like a perpetual cycle for me where I'm always messing this up with houseplants. But we're just gonna start over with like all new soil, because I don't even want to attempt to try to rehydrate that really dry soil. One thing that I have noticed is it helps if I've got soil that is very good quality. So I have been using Coast of Maine potting mix inside the greenhouse, and I haven't had any issues with those planters going hydrophobic, even though they do get pretty dry because it gets so hot in there. So I am gonna try this houseplant mix from them today. This is not an ad, but we are like brand ambassadors with them, so they give us the soil to use in our gardens. They actually just did an on-site visit with us, and I finally got to meet them, which was so much fun because we've only been communicating online with their marketing team for over a year now, and they've become like friends, you know, like, and that's the kind of partnership that I really want to have. But it was really cool to kind of make that connection in person, and they brought me this to try out. So I thought this would be a good time to give it a test. This mix is aged bark, peat moss, perlite, and cocoa fiber. Basic, but they're very good at creating mixes, which is great for me because I'm never gonna be the kind of person that makes my own mix. Like, I just do not have the energy or the time to devote to that. So I will leave it to the professionals. I'm gonna pat it a little bit just to make sure that it doesn't come through the bottom. And I never fill my containers up to the top, but it is gonna settle, so we wanna add a little bit more of this. So this mix is specifically supposed to be very good for drainage, which with something really low maintenance like a pothos doesn't matter as much. But like, I'm not your girl when it comes to advice for actually like taking care of houseplants. I'm not it. So these are our roots. This was all that I was able to salvage out of that hydrophobic soil. And honestly, it's fine, because if you think about it, a pothos roots so easily from a cutting. I'm basically just starting it over, right? I'm just gonna lay those roots pretty much horizontal and press them into the soil. Continue to drape over the side. And this is a golden pothos, which is why it's so pale. If you keep these in a really low light situation like I am, the leaves will stay this nice pale color. I'm just gonna give it a drink with the water it's been sitting in last night to hydrate this soil before I put it back inside. All right, thank you so much for gardening with me all week long. This has really been a journey. If you want to see more of my videos, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Happy gardening.